Welcome to Red Hoop Talk. It is I, Jennifer Robin. And today, I think some of you were at our membership, our annual 103rd annual membership drive, where I was introduced to Kimberly Guerrero, and I lost my mind. This woman is amazing. So even live there during the member drive, I'm like, she has to be our December guest. So luckily enough, we got her as my December guest. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you. It's so good to be with you, Jennifer, and everybody watching.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on because, in storytelling and film and television, everybody knows the actors or the directors, right? Those are the only names anybody pays attention to.
True.
Whereas there's so much more work that goes into everything and so many like unfamous, people that do it 24/7, not just when somebody yells action. So that's what I want to talk to you about. Like, why? Like, what gives you gray hair? That's what we're going to get into.
Would that be on set? Would that be on campus? Would that be in live?
And then do you cry in your car like a normal person?
Oh, sure. That's the best place to cry, don't you think?
A
Yeah.
Costco box of Kleenex in the trunk. It's not a big deal. We're fine.
It's like a therapy space. It's a safe
Right.
space.
And then hit your head on the horn. That's a famous one. So, Kimberly, why don't you introduce yourself? Because, I took over this podcast. It's changed. And then I brought a whole slew of radio audience members this way. So give us the details.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kimberly Guerrero. I'm a member of the Colville Confederated Tribes in Washington State, and also Salish and Kootenai from Montana. Although I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and grew up in a really small town called Idabel, and right in the heart of Choctaw country, and had a dream of being in the movies and on television one day, and got my little booty out to Los Angeles and went to school at UCLA and graduated with a degree in history with a focus on Native American history, and then kind of just started working as an actor from there on. And one of my first jobs was doing As the World Turns, which is an old soap opera on CBS that a lot of the Indian grandmas and aunties used to watch. And there was an Indian grandma in Lower Brule, South Dakota, that told one of her relatives that, like, hey, there's this Indian girl on my show, and you should bring her to talk to the kids. And so I get a message one day at CBS Studio in New York City, and call the number in South Dakota. And that began a long, happy life of going out to reservations and to our tribal communities all over North America, just working with youth. And then I started taking digital filmmaking out, and teaching them what I do, and going out with a team of other Indigenous artists. And so I've really just had a career of, teaching what I love and doing what I love. And even most recently started teaching at the University of California, Riverside, where I'm a professor there now in the Department of Theater, Film, and Digital Production. And I teach acting and screenwriting.
Dang. That's quite a resume, and I'm sure we just left out chunks of it. So when we chatted, questions have just been rolling around because we had such a short time frame during the member drive and stuff. But I want to know, why is representation important? I know why it is for me, but I kind of want, you're out there in the world.
Right. I think it's important because the human mind processes its reality through story, through narrative. And so we all are Indigenous to some level, right? Everybody's from the earth. And it's just a lot of cultures have forgotten their story circles. They've forgotten their fire. They've forgotten the power of the circle and of living in community, and this interdependence, not only with each other as human beings, but also with the land, the water, the air, the relatives that are four-legged and gliding and swimming and winged. And so that kind of interrelationship, and the stories that came from that formed all of us at one point, right? I mean, we all have that genetic memory. It just may be a little bit more on this, like closer to the surface, I think, with indigenous people. And so that's why I think representation matters, is because a lot of the stories that we're ingesting at our modern day story fires, which are our screens, they still glow. We still watch a lot of it at night, even though, we'll watch it during the day too. But it's still we all kind of still gather around, these screens, this light, this flickering light, and we ingest stories. And so, that story can be medicine, and it can be good medicine or bad medicine. I don't think there's a neutral story, really. And so it's like, is it elevating humanity? Is it teaching us a lesson? It doesn't have to be all happy and roses, but is it telling us something about ourselves and our place in the world and our responsibility to our relationships in that world? And that's why I think representation matters, is because if it's coming from a very narrow lens, from a very specific culture, then we're only getting one small little, piece of the pie, and not getting the entire perspective, which then in turn, we can't correctly respond to what's going on in our world because we're seeing through such a small aperture. Whereas if you have representation and you have people telling their stories from all over the world, from all their different wisdom, their knowledge, lines of knowledge that have been passed down, then we can all learn and we can all grow and we can all respond in a more strong and coherent way.
Well, North America was the last continent to burn their witches and their medicine women. And, and in my radio show, when people I notice them claiming towards indigenous culture, find your roots, go back to your Celtic women warriors, go back to, learn about, explore your DNA's medicine.
Right. That's a great way to put it.
But there is this common human experience, right? We all want to be safe, have food, take care of our babies, take pictures of our dogs. Like there's this
laugh.
Yes.
Fall in love.
Yep. Get through stuff, mourn.
Mm-hmm. Grieve together.
Yes. And I struggle. Radio didn't bug me as much because I felt like there was still kind of some protection of culture. Like, you're not seeing stuff. I'm just giving you what I'm describing, right? But now the world's changed and the lens is open. So there is more video and showing of stuff. And I just get weird nervous. Don't film that. Don't film over there. Don't film that entryway. There's still like a control versus let go I try to have when I do media work now, because I kind of like that a lot of us is unknown and a secret.
Right. Agreed. I know there is something about the sound of something. And I think even, if you go back to our storytelling circles, like right now, I can see myself checking my hair. I'm checking to see if I'm sweaty or whatever it is, exactly what you're talking about. But back in the day, we would have just been telling our stories with no idea about, this. We didn't, ourself and our image of ourself wasn't involved. So it was really about the other, and it was about the story. It was about serving the story and the people in the circle. And so I do think there's a freedom in that. And that, to that point, voiceover work is probably my favorite acting work, because you don't have to worry about any of that. You can just tell the story.
There's a freedom. It took 10 years until people knew what I look like.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a freedom in the booth. There's a freedom to, what do I look like? And then just coming in that raw as you are versus what am I supposed to be presenting, and it's just a rawer. Is that a word? Rawer? More
sure.
raw?
Yeah. Rawer. Yeah.
A rawer, let's keep it rawer.
Yeah.
So on that, you mentioned in our last little snippet interview that storytelling is becoming more honest. And I've been pondering that. In Hollywood, old Hollywood, it was to sell a fantasy, sell a dream, sell glamour. It's almost like propaganda in a way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And within that fantasy, there came the stereotypes and a lot of the damaging things. But how is there is there a line with the raw? Because we have some really terrible truths in our 500-year indigenous histories.
Yeah. What is your question to
Oh,
that point?
I don't remember. Like, is there a how do you present things that are so painful without berating or punishing or making people feel
Mhm.
bad?
Yeah, I think probably the best way that we can do that is through laughter and usually a little dash of romance or adventure or mystery. So as long as, the human spirit can be there and there's some levity. Um, and, you know, I think everything in balance, we all, I think in general, we kind of have this generalized understanding of the medicine wheel, those four parts, those four parts making up the whole. And so I think as long as that balance is there, right? If you have a hard truth, then you have you know that trickster, that heyoka, that clown that's there, to help offset, right? That they would be opposite parts of the medicine wheel. And then if you've got something very heartfelt, then can you have something that's very cold and, you know, um, ruthless over and fierce over here? So that just like all those things are balanced and kind of help us process. So we're not just living in the trauma the whole time.
There
I
you
think
go.
that's the way that we kind of handle. And I think that's why people loved and are still so responsive to reservation dogs, is because that's, at the heart of our storytelling. You didn't even know from week to week what you were going to get. To some degree, there was still that narrative thread following our kids and their grief and their process of mourning and letting go of their friend, or making sure that he made their journey and that their hearts were okay. And so I think that's, that was at the heart, right? That's the heartbeat, was that tragic death of their friend, but all of this hilarity and, different aspects of our world and, just the unique, like, characters that you're going to find along the way. That's what made it so special and what makes it extremely indigenous.
We are in the modern age of 2025. And like within that reservation dog, that was the first time that I didn't feel like I was getting fed stereotypes.
Mm,
Right? It was
yeah.
the first time that and I even tried, I don't mean any disrespect, but Dark Winds, the beginning of it felt kind of cheese to me. So I didn't
Mm,
even continue watching because it felt like a perpetuation of something. And I'm gonna tell you something, tell you a secret in front of everybody. Like a few years ago, worked on a short film project. The company gave us a consulting producer. First meeting, she told me that she wanted me to get shots of the natives looking up to the sky. And it broke my tiny little heart. And I shut down because
mm,
if I'm going to succeed in this, do I have to perpetuate what's already been out there? And why am I not allowed to film their faces looking at whatever I think is appropriate? Like
right.
it was just a weird spot. So I get torn between myself and giving the image that's going to give me the job for the few months or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you don't want to perpetuate somebody else's idea of who we
Of
are.
who, yeah.
Mhm,
This was a non-native person,
mhm.
and it took me 2 years to complain because
Mm,
I was like, if I rock the boat, am I out of the next gig or lose an opportunity? Or how much do I have to stomach and say, yes, ma'am, yes, me?
it's a lot to navigate.
It did a number on me. And then I get madder and I want to shut down.
Mm.
Or I do the opposite of what she said just to do it. And maybe they were looking up at something. Maybe there was something up there at this
There's
point.
Hulk. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in your teaching, in your professorial role, how would you explain that to somebody? Because when they say, oh, it's a Native American project or film, there's still some level of what they think Native American is that needs to be in there.
Right. What I tell my students is, that they do have agency when they go in. If they that getting a job is a two-way street. It may not feel that way, but as long as you're kind and you're respectful and you're going in with ideas, I think that's the number one thing, is to go in with ideas. And if the screenplay is off, um, the screenwriting is off, and the depiction is off, come in with ideas. Like, don't just say it's wrong, but just say, like, what could make it better? What are you trying to get at? And then come in. I'm a big fan of the love sandwich. You come with what's right about it. I see what you're doing here, and I really am responding to that. Here's how I think it could be stronger, you know, because I do that thing that you want to get across. I want it to come across, and it's going to come across in a more compelling way if it's authentically,
Yes.
these people. And so I found, it's probably a 50-50 response to that. The people that have wanted me to come on board and have listened to these ideas, they appreciate that, right? They're like, oh, this is cool, because we're getting, not only an actor, but we're getting somebody that can contribute to the authenticity of the story and to the story as a whole. And the other 50%, I probably just never heard back from. Like, I've done auditions, self tapes, where I pitch something in my self tape because something's off, and it may be the only chance that I have, to say, hey, this depiction that you have of this Seminole person, it's super interesting. This would be even more compelling because of who the Seminole are and their history and their location. And so, that person I never heard back from. But it's just throwing it out there, with kindness and respect, and a sense of collaboration, and just trying to do your best not to get pissed off when sometimes it's really, really hard.
I know.
It's really, really hard sometimes, but just to try to keep thinking like we're both on the same page. We both want the same thing. We want this story to do well. Because even in show business, the business side of show business is to make money, and you make money by making good product. So I'm just trying to help your product be as kick-ass as it can be.
100%. And, we were depicted in early Hollywood as stoic, looking at the sky, holding an eagle feather. But I got my butt spanked by more native aunties, grandmas, and neighbors than anything. There's a personality there. There's sass. There's a drive. There's so many like juicy parts about our people.
Yeah.
That aren't just sitting there. I mean, some people wake up and greet the sunrise singing a song. It ain't
True.
me, babe. I'm hitting snooze.
True. And there's all aspects. And the person that's getting up and maybe putting out their corn pollen and saying good morning to the sun are also that sassy, smart ass person, when they are on their way to work with their like giant coffee or whatever. Yeah, it's just understanding our people and how, that I love that word, or that phrase that we've kind of owned these past few years of native joy, and what that means, and how it's been such an engine for us to get through the past 500 years, and it continues to just drive us all toward excellence and our unique take on what excellence is, because it's a little different.
Yes. And we're pushing 600 nations, 580 something nations just on this turtle island. So each one has its own thing, right?
Right.
So
right.
And then I think that takes me into the Spirit Rangers. So I don't have any little ones yelling at me to turn on cartoons. But I got friends that love it. I love Ray Zaragoza. She's my gal pal. And some of the music contributions, but that it's like a weird freedom in it being animated, but at the same time, you're kind of representing a few different cultures within a culture.
That's right.
And then trying to do it right. So that's a lot. There was no question. I guess the question is, how do you do it? How do you pull it off?
Well, that team is unbelievable. If you just kind of go on and go on IMDb and look at all of the Indigenous folks involved with that, they were really specific about California natives and Joey Clift being Cowlitz. And so I think the dad was Cowlitz. And so that, everything was feeding into the authenticity and the specificity of what specifically Western tribes and what these park rangers would do, in this beautiful park in the Pacific West. And so that is just a matter of team and Netflix trusting, in our showrunner, who's also a California native, and just working with individuals that are so committed, but not only committed to the authenticity, just doing really, really fun work. I mean, I could not wait for those scripts to come in. I don't have little ones either. And I just could not wait to get a new batch and read through them because they were so, so fun. And I wanted to see what the storylines were and what the kids were up to and what kind of, issues they were going to get into and that week. And it was just, again, it goes back to community. Who's your community? And pulling in just the best people you can find.
But I like how you guys showed that our stories are our way of stories. And even in California, the whole West Coast, look at how many different tribes, inland, coastal, up north, south. I mean, it's
right. How different the northern tribes would be.
Yep.
A Yurok tribe would be from, all the way down in San Diego, in the Kumeyaay. I mean, it's completely because we're again interrelated to our environment. We're connected to our land, and the land is so different. So there's a deep similarity, of kind of a worldview, but how how we're connecting with the land and have evolved with the land really, denotes kind of sense of humor and dress and culture and stories.
But you've shown Netflix, you've shown this major conglomerate that our stories make money, that there is a value, right? Mm-hmm. Not just in our story, but in advertising or merch or whatever. Right. So is it weird to be a middle-aged childless cat lady to just go binge Spirit Rangers? Is that should I just not tell anybody?
No, I think it's, I tell a lot of folks, like, this is one you're going to, if you do have kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews, this is one you would enjoy watching. I mean, like, I think we all love, Toy Story, all the Pixar stuff, Encanto. There's just, I think we're all happy to see a well-told animated show, even if it is geared toward kids or even pre-K.
And what season is it up to?
I think we stopped at season 3. Yeah, I think we stopped at season 3.
And is there anything else like that in the mix that you can disclose or floating out there?
I'm sure there is, because the team is incredible. So but
it was a huge hit.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what is out there, but I would imagine that, because it was so successful and everybody had such a great time doing it, on both ends, like Netflix, our team, everybody had such a great time, that I'm sure there's something else in the works.
So is it racist to want to hire an Indigenous team for an Indigenous project?
No, I think that, it's of course up to whatever. I mean, Hollywood runs by producers, really, right? So it's the executive producers that bring in the money and kind of put the team together, the producers that are really on the ground putting the team together. But I think that, it's let's say that you're a native producer and you've optioned a novel written by a native novelist, then you're already starting to think, like, what team do I want to pull together? You spoke about Dark Winds, and the upside about Dark Winds is that Zahn McLaren not only came aboard to be the lead in that, but is also executive producing. And so Steve Judd is I believe producing as well, and was there from the beginning. So it's like that may have started one way with AMC, but like slowly but surely, Erica Tremblay was directing. I think Black Horse Low is directing now. So it's like it's slowly but surely getting more and more, native, above the line, and creating the piece as well.
But so we check each other too, us natives. We pick on each other. We check each other. Like, I feel like we're able to be more honest and creative
Oh man, like we
within
did.
community.
We were, speaking of Black Horse Low, we were doing a episode of Outer Range with Tamara Podemski,
I like that.
and it was so, we were, she was, back in the past, and I was also a time traveler that had been back there longer.
You're so cool.
And it was really, it's just such a cool episode, and a really powerful story we were telling. And it was so cool to be able to, all of us, it just was a different way of working. And Reservation Dogs was the same, working with, whether it was Sterling directing or Sidney Freeland directing, or we were all just, it's a collaboration, right? You're really, of course you're looking to your director for guidance, but it was, you could look any direction and go, hey, is this cool? Like, is
Right.
this a good idea? Or what do you think about this? Or especially if you've got a language consultant or whatever, and just like checking in with the language, or am I saying this right? Or is there a more smart ass way to say this, or a kind way to say this, whatever it is, so it's like when you're working with Indigenous folks, and there's that shorthand there, right? That, it's just it's a really cool way to work. But for instance, on Welcome to Derry, we were doing an episode. I'll try not to spoil this. An episode, and Andy Muschietti, who directed directed the bookends of the season, but is also executive producing it with his sister. He was always so open to the Indigenous talent on the show, and he said, there was a line that one of our elders, he's like saying goodbye. He goes like, basically like, goodbye, effers,
Right.
and it's really, really funny. And it always made us laugh. And then I said, hey, Andy, can we have Kevin do one more? And he said, yeah. He goes, what do you want him to say? And I go, we'll show you. And so then he said, all right, well, I don't want to spoil the line because it will spoil the scene for people that haven't seen it, but he goes, well, see you around, smart asses, I'm sorry, shit asses. He said, I'll see you shit asses, later, basically. And I was like, no, because all the reservation, even though it's 1962, our elders all use that word, so it was like a fun way. And that's what's in the episode, is shit ass.
One thing with the dairy that I do appreciate during them flashbacks, or I guess it wasn't flashbacks because it was in that 50s, 60s, but I liked that it had representing our aunties and uncles and grandmas that held that space, right? For our water, for our sites, even though it was ignored. And then my heart kind of broke. Why are we having the same conversations like 70 years later on water and our sacred sites? And hey, why don't you guys trust us when we tell you something's bad over there? I mean, if people would have listened to the Choctaw, the whole movie Sinners never would have happened, because they would have been like, okay, right? So maybe there's a benefit to listening to us. Maybe.
Yeah, it is really kind of, it's dumbfounding to think, thinking about the association and when it got started.
103 years.
And those things they were fighting for back then, and even before then. And it's like those same battles are going on today, or the missing and murdered Indigenous relatives, crisis that has never stopped being a crisis. And that was one of the things I was able to talk about doing Press with Derry. It was like, this is, so much of it is an homage, to our relatives that are missing and murdered, and grounded in that grief and ongoing process of mourning, and explaining like, this is not something that we've ever not lived with. Like, this has been there since contact. And so European contact, I should say. So, yeah, it's just getting all of these, these truths out, and hopefully encouraging each other, that us talking about it and remembering and singing and praying and fighting together is always making it, is always making a positive impact.
Well, I was almost kidnapped at 5 years old. But I wiggled, and I guess I elbowed my kidnapper in the junk, and he let me go, and I ran home. So missing murdered Indigenous women is we're treated like it's an exaggeration, like we're just being hysterical ethnic women. And it kind of like there's a show, Alaska Daily, and that was the first time non-natives would come up to me, working powwow or doing whatever I'm doing and say, "Oh, I know what this is now." So
Well,
on the plus side, it's
that's what we
getting,
were talking about, representation.
yes, on the plus side, these things are getting around. But then on the other side, you have this current administration that just went, we're not going to deal with it anymore.
Right.
Right.
After so much positive.
And then the buildup with what was it when, and what was it, 2021-ish, when they did the Operation Lady Stick or whatever? It sounded like a deodorant, and then they did nothing. The FBI did nothing. So it's so hard for me to feel pumped because I'm always bracing for the trend to be over, the dismissed later, or like that they just shut it down. So I want something to stick. Can you write a script that will just make everybody not idiots? Do you think you can do that, Kimberly?
Well, there are a lot of really powerful scripts out there. There are things that have been shot that are really powerful. I'm thinking of like Kaylee Reese in Catch the Fair One is a really interesting and powerful um, film that addresses this. But yeah, I think that it's just that it feels like a lot of people have good scripts. Some of those scripts that I've seen feel like they're just using it because it's a topic, and that feels gross. And you can always feel the difference
It's
when
slime.
it's very creepy and slimy. But there are really strong scripts out there from both native and non-native writers.
Okay,
And
is it appropriate for a non-native writer to write about? And again, these are all things that we're navigating as we move forward in the
right.
world. Is it appropriate for a non-native to write native topic scripts?
I get that all the time. And I get that even from my MFA students. I've had a few MFA students come through our program, that are writing Indigenous characters, and they come into the office like ready for a beat down. And, and I've read their work, and their work is really beautiful. And I talk about, kind of my perspective that story is a living thing. And if a story has tapped you on the shoulder and wants you to tell it, then you have a responsibility to tell it. And the fact that you're coming to me as an Indigenous person to say, please look at this. I need to, it's not like I want you to consult on it. Like I want, to see how this resonates. Does this feel authentic? Does this feel truth? Is there somebody I can go to talk about, the cultural, realities of this? Does this feel culturally appropriative in any way? I mean, all of those questions where there's a genuine desire to want to represent and to not want to overstep bounds. I think that is kind of the litmus test for should a non-Indigenous person write an Indigenous story. And, nowadays, I just don't, I mean, I'm talking specifically here about folks writing writing fiction. So short stories and novels and things like that. But as far as screenwriters go, right now, where we are right now, I always strongly recommend that a screenwriter reach out to a Native person and bring them on board as a screenwriting partner. I just feel like right now that's what we've worked so hard for. And you can have the story and it can be amazing, but you bringing on an Indigenous writer whose work you respect and who knows the community you're writing about, that can't help but make your script even stronger. Because I said this in an interview on the red carpet for Dairy, like talking about Stephen King, like you don't know what you don't know. And why would Stephen King have this ancestral knowledge, of the Wabanaki Nation or the Penobscot Nation, even though he grew up even though he went to talks, where John Bear Mitchell was talking, or, he knew a lot of the Native folks and heard the stories. Hearing the stories secondhand is different than being in ceremony or sitting with, your grandmother, your grandfather, aunts and uncles, and hearing stories, from them passed down. And so, just write especially right now. I just want to say like not ever. But yeah, I just think maybe that's where we're moving, to is it would be the same if I wanted to write, an African American character or a storyline. I would most likely, I mean, like say it was rooted in that community. For some reason, I feel called to tell this story. That's I would be like, okay, I want to find a partner. I want to find a screenwriting partner because I've got a story that I'm really passionate about, but I know I can't tell it without that internal. It's those little, tiny, unique specificities that make something really special.
Yes. And also, again, utilizing the indigenous people of where the story's told. You're not just slapping a Lakota in a headdress on a California story or
Or New Mexico
New
story, or
Mexico story.
Alabama, or wherever. Yeah.
Yes.
Upper New York State.
So, and I think about this. So, actors and acting, you act, right? You're pretending to be something. Non-natives are native looking people in native roles. I just want to pick your brain because it is acting, but at the same time, good acting comes from somewhere. And so if you're just perpetuating, it's just, do you see that weird space that because who was the lady in Yellowstone? I loved her. She pulled it off. I was like, oh, she's native. Right. So where is that pachacha with that? Because again, you're acting.
Mm.
It's a weird question. I've never asked it because I feel like I should just be mad and only natives get to do native roles. But then in the back of my head, like it's acting.
Yeah, for me, and I can again only speak for myself.
No, you're going to speak for all of us right here, right now. Dang it.
I am. I remember the first time I got sent out on a Latina role, probably in my early 20s. And I went because that's what you did, exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Acting is acting. And I got the character. I liked the character. Obviously, I had Mexican American friends that I could go to and like
And
try to help
channel.
me with, the mannerisms and things like that. And kind of find their accent and all the things that you do with any character. But then when I went into the room and I saw all the Latinas in there, Spanish speaking, growing up in the community, eating that food and listening to that music, and just the generations and generations and generations that came behind them. It did not. I still auditioned, but I'm like, I don't. This first of all, I'm never going to get this role. Second of all, it didn't feel right for me, and so I feel the same way. When especially back then, when I would walk into a role that was native, written for a native person, and I would be in the room with folks that 80% of them were not. They had dark hair and dark eyes, and I mean that's just my guess. Not so much even based on what they look like, because how do we even know what a native looks like? But it was based on like maybe they're coming in like a whole bunch of buckskin and it's for a contemporary role, or they've got feathers in their hair and you're like, sister, that's not it. Or like if we got to talking, and we asked what tribe each other's from, they were Cherokee. Oh, where did you grow up? I grew up in Nevada. Not saying that Cherokees can't be in Nevada, but you know what I'm saying. It's just
Yeah,
like
that disconnection
there's a complete
from
disconnect.
the raw culture. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so it was the same thing. It was like, well, why don't, I've got a lot of great native girlfriends that we should all be in here. Most of us would go out in the same auditions, but Irene Bedard and Terry Walker and Larissa Fasthorse, and there were just so many, Carolyn Dunn, of our generation. It's like that could have been filled up with all of us, and should have been filled. That cast room should have been filled up with all of us. And so, so I'm still there with the same way with screenwriters writing Indigenous stories. I'm that way as well with actors. I do think that you should have a connection to the culture. And if you've been adopted out, or there's been some trauma in your past that has separated you from your people, that there's an active and kind of ongoing connection to the community. Because I have so many friends like that, that are lost birds, and but they've all found their community, even though they don't know exactly what tribe, they don't know their people, they find their people and they get adopted. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
they're a part, and
If we absorb you in as a cousin for life, it's what you is now.
100%. And so, that's beautiful.
Well, and I am picking up what you're throwing down because look at us. We're very different. You got beautiful straight hair. I got curly hair because the Choctaw got Spanish. We got Spanish before.
Yeah.
So there really is, there is no stereotype for us.
No, not at all. But again, it's the Hollywood, right? It's what Hollywood has done. Yeah.
So another thing I want to bug you about, because I've thought about this way too much, Kimberly. Okay. So my family, my bloodline, the past 4 generations, I am the next Shameless. Okay. My shit show of family trauma and generational trauma, from grandma running away to boarding school till all the issues about my daddy until therapist. But I get blocked up because I don't want to make my family look bad. I don't want to make us look bad. I don't want to, if somebody's drunk, perpetuate a stereotype. Like I really, 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 until maybe 13 months ago, can't tell my story. So I finally opened up to some cousins about the chaos, and we all agreed that my show would be called Intergenerational Drama. But just that weird, you don't want to make anybody look bad in culture, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So it's a weird. So how do you respectfully show something about a fall down drunk? How do you respectfully show this darker side of addiction and trauma and the lost birds and the pain they feel without making somebody look more human than bad? It's a weird thing that shuts me up when it comes to, my future biography.
Yeah, no, I hear what you say. And I think it's a sign of deep compassion and respect and love, to not just want to use that. I mean, I think that's also very indigenous, right? To kind of cover for each other.
And that's like a trauma response though, right?
Well, for us, not for everybody.
Like,
yeah, I think for us it's right. For us, it's no. I do wrestle with that, and I wrestle with that when I screenwrite and when I go into the deep places, and when I'm writing about boarding school trauma or something like that. It's always about how far do you push, with showing the abuse, and it's always a very spiritual undertaking. When I'm personally writing about something like that, it's always harder to write about it than it is even to act it, and which is very interesting. But I think that the key is to always, and you said the word human, it's always to humanize the person that is in such deep woundedness that their response is abusing themselves, abusing others, all of the above, and giving us, not this black and white binary, good and bad. This person's evil. I would never do that. It's like, well, then let's unpack their circumstances and then come back to me and tell me if you would do that thing. So it's always maybe about finding that one aspect of that person that breaks your heart for them. It does not excuse the behavior, but it does help you understand how they might arrive at that place, and or how tragic it is that all this potential, was stolen and or thrown away, and or again, all of the above. But I think it's humanizing. Just going back to the medicine wheel, right? What's that counterbalance? If they're fall down drunk, then who are they at their most coherent?
Yeah, when they're standing up, who are they? Yeah.
What gift do they have that's being attacked? Because I look at all of it like a spiritual spiritual war. Like there's something in them that they were supposed to bring into the world, a song they were supposed to sing that is being attacked, and it's being attacked in this way. So starting to find that that potential and that power in that person. And then maybe the story's about that. Now and then it ends with they break through, which is technically a comedy, even though it might not be funny, but they have a breakthrough and they end up moving toward that potential, or the hope for that potential, or it ends up tragically and they don't. But the thing is, we've gone through that cathartic experience, and that's how I think that we tackle the deepest and the darkest, things that are happening in our family. And the stuff that I bring into my own work is always fictionalized. I like turn it upside down. If it's an older person, I make them a younger person. And if it's, I just always just flip things around where nobody will ever feel outed. But
Yeah, I was just gonna wait for everybody to die and then start writing. I mean, but no, and the human part too. We have all lost people to drugs and alcohol.
yeah.
Like human, like pick a race. Like, we as humans struggle with how to process pain. And I feel that more than a lot of other cultures, alcohol, I don't drink because I get heartburn, not because of really anything else. But I do notice when I'm in a group and I'm like the only brown one, I will not drink at all, because again, there's this like, how should I be to not make us look bad? And I'm already loud, so I've already shattered that stoic stereotype. Um, in that balancing act, because I think it is a weird trauma response to not tell everybody how bad it is at home.
Yeah, we all do that, right? That's human. I think there's something really beautiful about I think the movies, the stories that move us most are ones that required the teller to be painfully vulnerable and to expose something about themselves that is terrifying. And that's exactly to your point. But it's a very courageous act, to write something like that. And then I'll never forget that I could not believe the panic attack I had when my first short film was screened at the American Indian Film Festival up in San Francisco. And I'm like, I've been to premieres, where I'm acting, and I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. I hope it does well. This was like full blown. I couldn't even hardly watch. And I stood outside the theater, and the first time I heard the audience laugh at an intended funny moment, then I kind of started peeking back in, and then they laughed again. And then I was finally able to sit down in the very back, but it was still like my heart was pounding for all 32 minutes of it. It was just terrifying. So it's a heroic act, storytelling.
All art is vulnerable.
Agreed. That's right.
And then if it's not vulnerable, we hate it and we ignore it. God, that's same thing with comedy. Oh, that's terrible. I'm the funniest when I'm like near tears, mental breakdown. That's when they laugh the hardest, when I'm just about to lose it completely. So let's pretend that I have a young audience. Everybody's old like me. What advice would you give any budding? I mean, the landscape has changed since you and I started radio and film and all this stuff. It's very different now. So is there any advice kind of for the youngins and navigating into this new realm of endless media?
Yeah, I think and this is for the youngins in age, but also the youngins who, if you're 65 or 75 and you're like, I want to start being an influencer, I want to start doing TikTok, I want to start telling my stories, and getting my grandson or granddaughter to, film me telling these stories or whatever it is, or doing comedy, exactly like you. Like, I'm going to start doing these skits because I have this character I love playing. So this is for anybody that wants to break in. It comes down to you really having a story, going back to that thing, story has tapped you on its shoulder, or there's a character that you always play that everybody loves. And it's just going, you know what, I'm going to start posting, 30 or 45 seconds or a response to something going on in the world right now as this character, and just post it, even if only 4 or 5 people watch. It's just that creative outlet is such a gift that you and I and those folks that were around before the digital age, we didn't have access to the whole world. We have a global audience out there right now. And you never know. Let's say that you're just, for 5 years you're going and 5 or 10 people are watching you consistently. But then that 11th person starts watching, and that's the one person that then, goes to this person, that goes to that person, and all of a sudden overnight, you wake up and instead of your 5 followers, you have 5,000, and then that turns to 50,000, and all of a sudden you got a million followers. And not that that's what it's about, right? And I think that's the key, though. I think the key is like, I love doing this. I would do it whether one person is following me or a million people are following me, whether I'm making no money and putting my own money into it, or if I was making, $10 million. Like, this is what I love to do and something I want to share with the world. And so I think that there's something. And then lastly, I want to say, is I feel right now, and this goes back full circle to stories being more honest right now. I feel like right now our world is hurting so badly. I mean, I just don't know anybody that's not hurting right now and really, really struggling. And it we all need each other right now. And I would go so far as to say we need each other's stories right now. I think that's why TikTok is so popular, why we're, I mean, yes, it's doom scrolling, but I mean, I think it's also a bid for connection. I think we're connecting with things that bring us joy. And again, going back to that story fire, we're looking for our own medicine, and we're trying to curate our own medicine. The danger is that, of course, within the applications, there is that addictive quality, right? So it's just like that we have to tend to make sure that the dopamine hit from all this is not owning us, right? But at the same time, I do think that if you're like, I want to start doing this, whether it's acting for film and television, you imagine yourself on Netflix one day, or you want to be in a Marvel, in the Marvel franchise one day, all the way to you want to do verticals, the new, this new whole new world of vertical shows and narratives. It's saying like, what kind of stories do you want to tell? What kind of characters do you want to play? What do you want to give to the world? So it's not so much about you, like me. I want to look good. I want people to love me. I want people to follow me. But it's the opposite. It's just like, that's what I do with my students. Like, why are you doing this? And it's so beautiful to see to a person. They're like, because I want to tell stories about the LGBTQ plus community, or like the queer Latina community, or whatever it is, like all very specific, or the Afro, it's just like all these different cultural backgrounds. It's like, I want people to know more about the culture, or I want people to know that, intergenerational families are cool, because I live with my grandparents and my mom and dad, and then what I mean? Whatever it is, it's always like out of service versus about opposite versus, personal adoration or worship.
And that's gross. And we all see that. But you know what I mean? Like when somebody comes to it like that, we all just go, bleh.
Yeah. And you can feel it. And you can
Okay.
feel it versus like if there's something somebody's doing and you're like, they're doing that for me. Like they want me to walk away having laughed or having learned something,
I feel
or having go,
stronger.
like that's true. Or go, wait a minute, is that true? And you want to look it up, whatever it is. It's value. It gives you something.
So you work with the youth, and I guess this is a thing too. Like, first off, You need to feel confident enough and valuable enough to feel like your story should be told. There's a lot of people that
Mhm.
don't feel like I'm not of value and things like that. So how do you shake those kids loose?
Ooh, I think we start well. This is in class. This is a lot more in depth, but we start with really the fundamentals of what are the stories you're telling yourself, and do those stories serve you? Are those stories true? Because there's a difference between the facts and the truth, right? Your facts may be you come from this very dysfunctional, but the truth is, does that mean you have to be dysfunctional? You know, the potential is there, right? That's the truth. But the facts may shift. Like right now, I don't have any opportunities, but the truth is, um, it doesn't feel like you have opportunities, but you do, right? There's like all these things. You're just going to maybe take some hard work. And so I think that really listening to the stories that you're telling yourself and going, are these real? I mean, is just because my granddad was in jail and then my dad was in jail and everybody tells me I'm going to end up in jail, does that mean I'm going to end up in jail? You know, because it just makes you like give up because everybody tells you, and you're like, no, I want something different for my life, and so it's just coming to terms with your own agency, that you have choice, and even being able to have choice over what you think about, and not just take those thoughts in your head as real, as truth, but question them and see if they're serving you. If they're not serving you, talk back to them. Just go, you know what? No, I don't want to hear from you anymore. I don't want to, that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. And just taking agency over your life. I think that's super, super helpful. And then exactly what you did, Jennifer, which is again, so courageous, which is telling your story to someone, just one other person, just out loud, that feels safe, and then once you've done that, then maybe you can tell it to somebody else. And then maybe you can tell another person. But the more that expose those shadows, that you thought like these creepy monsters were under the bed, and you're like, oh, there's crap under the bed, but it's not stuff that's gonna, it's not stuff that's gonna kill me. It's just part of my past, and we all have them. I think it's like doing away with that idea that any of us is perfect and any of us is like, have these lives that are like, don't have shit, up and out and everywhere. And we're not all insecure. It's like once you kind of go, oh my gosh, we're all in the same boat. I think that helps us kind of open up and be willing to tell our own story.
Well, I've been in radio almost 15 years and everybody has a story. Even the checkout girl at Walmart, I'm like best friends with her, and she's the most fascinating thing I've ever seen in my life, right?
I'm telling you,
Waiting
they
in line
all,
for the bathroom at some random show. Like, oh my gosh, what's your deal?
yes.
And yeah, the more we dig, the more we can laugh and cry and share together. So do you still do talks, or are you just doing your professorship? Or let's say like I'm up here in NorCal, if somebody was like, we got to get her in with the youth. Do you still do tours like that? Or
I haven't lately because I've just been so wrapped up. Been going back and forth between the set and teaching and the set and teaching for
okay.
about the past, 5 to 6 years. So I'm not closed off to it at all.
Okay.
I just,
I'm just lazy and want to get you up here so I can go to some school and see you and not actually like
that
make
would
my
be
way
cool.
down south to see you. So
That'd be cool.
I do that. You guys please book my friends so I can hang out. So where, who, what, your socials? I mean, your IMDb, where can we further stalk? I mean, admire you safely from afar.
So yeah, folks can get in touch with me and just kind of follow me on Instagram at Kimberly Norris Guerrero, and at Kimberly Norris Guerrero. Norris is like Lando Norris, or if you're older, Chuck Norris. Yeah, check out my IMDb if you want to go back in the day and see kind of fun stuff that's there that might entertain you.
Now, are you the only professor at UC Riverside that does your thing? Or like if anybody enrolls or there's any students out there, can they specifically find you like for your class? Are you booked 5 minutes after enrollment opens?
I'm usually booked in most of my
That's
classes
awesome.
with our major, because I teach advanced acting, so they're pretty,
Ooh,
yeah,
serious thespians.
serious thespians. Yes.
So here's a question because I said thespian. A lot of times we want to compare indigeneity to colonization stuff, right? So I come from a storytelling people where you listen and somebody's telling a story or somebody, but did we have like plays? Were there like multi people involved in like one story? Like, did we do stuff like that?
That's a great question. I would say, you can certainly go back. I'm like really trying to dig through my anthropology right now. But of course, you think of like Pueblo tribes. And so they're doing within their dances or
Ah,
within Northwest Longhouse dances. And I don't know within the Longhouse stories in the Northwest. I'm not sure. And maybe even Northern California. The pit houses, right? Is that the
yep.
traditional?
Or
So like there's that possibility that there were groups telling stories, especially at certain times of the year, as part of ceremony. So yeah, I would say that they probably did, but it maybe not in the traditional like Greek
yes,
sense of like a stage and
yes.
all of that. I would imagine, because that just kind of comes naturally to us as human
Yep.
beings.
Well,
Kind
and
of
you
want
hear a
to,
story every winter your whole life, right? You have it memorized too. So you
yeah,
could be back there parroting, parroting grandma.
exactly. Exactly. Or acting it out, wanting to act
Yep.
it out. Or
The
they would
drum.
say, like, don't do that. That's dangerous. Like, you'll call the spirits if you do that, or whatever it is.
I love it. Kimberly, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being part of this today. And I know that, you making time for this is it's a huge deal to me. And I just, I feel so blessed that we have some kind of compass within you from your past experience and kind of where you see things going to help process all of this new world and what's appropriate and
Mm.
and things like that. So you are an asset. And if I wanted to go back
Yeah.
to school, I'd move to Riverside, but I can't no more with the homework.
And it's hot.
I'll take it. I'm up in the mountains and stuff. Like I want just all sunshine all day.
Well, that's Riverside.
I'm solar powered. And I'm thinking too, like you mentioned being raised in Oklahoma in ceremony, but some of the stories, most of the stories I heard was just like in the car with grandpa for 90 minutes trying to get somewhere, right? Stuck in
Yes.
the car with uncle trying to get somewhere because
Oh,
we're all
100%.
so spread apart. So like
No, that's how, no, I
not
didn't
just
grow up.
sitting around the fire, it's being
No,
locked in the car with an elder
I didn't
forced
grow
to
up. I
listen.
did not grow up with ceremony in Oklahoma.
But you grew up with the car rides, so
I grew up,
that's
yeah,
ceremony.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, you have nowhere to go but to listen. And you try to zone out or daydream, but nope, there's nowhere to go because you're so close and you're just hearing it. So there you go. That's our pony ride ceremony. Thank you so much, Kimberly. People,
Thank you,
please look
Jennifer.
her up, stalk her, and hire her for things. Come on.
Yes, please.
I sew to make media, right? I work powwow to pay an editor. Like it's not someday I just want one job.
It's the dream.
Can I have one job someday? Probably not. All right. Well, you have yourself a wonderful holiday season and but you're on the board for the association, so maybe we'll see you at some
I'll
official
see
things
you
soon.
soon. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How fun was that? I didn't Oh my gosh. I need to take one of her classes and instead of trying to get her completely all of her course during one Red Hoop Talk. So, all right. This is available tomorrow wherever you can find podcast and right until next month when we jump in back into the hoop 100th episode next month. So I have no idea what the ladies are planning, but it's gonna rock. All right. Well, cheapies and la chique. We'll see you next time.